My brother tried to steal everything while I couldn't even lift my head off the hospital pillow. The anesthesia still clouded my thoughts when my sister-in-law's panicked voice cracked through the phone speaker. "Nathan, something's wrong at the store. Your brother is making decisions he shouldn't be making." My chest tightened, not from the surgery pain, but from a deeper fear I'd ignored for years. Through the fog of medication, I realized I'd handed Tyler the keys to my life at the worst possible moment. The nurse adjusted my IV drip and told me I'd been unconscious longer than expected. 3 days, not one. My fingers trembled as I tried to sit up, but my body refused. Tyler had 3 full days of freedom, 3 days to rewrite everything I'd built. The fluorescent lights above me buzzed like angry wasps, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a cold truth settled in. My brother wasn't visiting me. He was replacing me. Tyler stood in the center of Morrison Hardware, my family's store, wearing confidence like a stolen coat. He barked orders at employees who'd worked there for a decade, people who knew my father's handshake and my grandfather's laugh. "From now on, all supplier contracts go through me," he announced, his voice carrying across the sales floor. He'd already changed the staff schedule without asking anyone. The old wooden sign outside, the one Dad carved in 1987, had been replaced with something modern and soulless. Tyler met with our biggest suppliers in my office, sitting in my chair, using my coffee mug. When Mrs. Patterson, our bookkeeper, questioned a suspicious wire transfer, Tyler smiled, that thin smile I'd seen since childhood. "Nathan's recovering. I'm handling things now." But in that smile lived something darker, something that had been waiting for this exact opportunity. Tyler believed he'd finally outsmarted everyone, including me. The first text came from Chris, our floor manager, just 3 words: "He's changing everything." Then another from Yolanda in inventory: "Tyler fired Miguel, no reason given." My phone buzzed continuously despite the hospital's Wi-Fi being terrible. Each message revealed another piece of Tyler's plan. He'd locked my office, changed the safe combination, told suppliers I was stepping down for health reasons. But something unexpected was happening. The staff wasn't accepting it. Chris texted again, "We know you're the real owner, nobody's fooled." Yolanda sent a photo of Tyler demanding she hand over financial records. In the image, her arms were crossed, jaw set. The caption read, "I told him to wait for you." These people, the ones I'd hired and trained and respected, were quietly resisting. My heart rate monitor beeped faster. The nurse glanced over, concerned, but I waved her off. I wasn't dying. I was planning. My parents' ringtone interrupted physical therapy. Mom's voice was strained, uncertain. "Nathan, Tyler says you're not well enough to run the store anymore. He says the surgery revealed complications." Lies built on lies, wrapped in fake concern. I could hear my father in the background, his voice low and worried. Tyler had spent an hour at their house, painting me as irresponsible, overwhelmed, secretly struggling. He'd shown them my hospital bills, which somehow he'd gotten access to, suggesting the costs would bankrupt the business. "He says he's trying to protect the family," Mom continued. The worst part wasn't Tyler's manipulation. It was hearing the doubt creep into my parents' voices, the same parents who'd handed me the store 5 years ago, who'd trusted me completely. Tyler had turned my surgery into evidence of my failure. That night, scrolling through my phone with one hand still attached to an IV, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The hospital billing showed Tyler's name as my emergency contact and financial guarantor. He was positioning himself as my caretaker, my decision maker, my replacement. My best friend Kyle visited on day 4, bringing actual food instead of hospital mystery meat. While I ate, he video called Chris at the store. The camera showed Tyler standing near the register, pointing at something, his posture screaming authority he hadn't earned. But then I noticed the staff. Nobody was moving. Nobody was following his directions. When Tyler shouted across the floor, Chris simply turned his back and helped a customer. Yolanda walked past him like he was invisible. Tyler's face reddened. He grabbed Chris's shoulder and I watched Chris calmly remove Tyler's hand without looking at him. "The real owner is awake now," Chris said, his voice barely audible through the phone speaker but clear enough. Tyler's expression shifted. Fear flickered across his features before arrogance covered it again. Kyle ended the call and looked at me seriously. "Your staff is protecting your store, but Tyler's getting desperate." I nodded, finally understanding. Tyler hadn't won. He just started a war he couldn't finish. Lydia came to visit on day 5. She'd been our senior manager for 12 years, hired by my father before his retirement. She sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair and placed a thick folder on my lap. "I've been documenting everything," she said quietly. Inside were copies of emails where Tyler pressured suppliers to redirect payments to a new account. Photos of him meeting with our competitor, Foster's Building Supply. Recorded conversations where he discussed restructuring that would eliminate half our staff. "I started keeping records 2 weeks before your surgery," Lydia admitted. "He'd been asking strange questions about ownership documents and your health. I knew something was coming." Her loyalty broke something open in my chest. While I'd been unconscious, while Tyler had been performing his takeover, Lydia had been building a case against him. But now Tyler was suspicious. He'd started watching her, questioning why she was always on her computer. His paranoia was growing, which made him more dangerous. The courier arrived at the store on day 6. I watched through Chris's phone camera as a man in a professional suit delivered a thick envelope marked urgent legal documents. Tyler's face lit up. This was it, the forged ownership transfer papers he'd paid someone to create. He reached for the envelope with greedy fingers, but Chris stepped forward. "I'll need to verify the recipient's authority to accept legal documents on behalf of Morrison Hardware." Tyler froze. "I'm the acting manager." Chris smiled politely. "We'll need written authorization from the legal owner, Nathan Morrison, store policy." The courier looked confused. Tyler's voice rose. "I have power of attorney." Chris pulled out his phone. "Let me call Nathan to confirm." Tyler's face drained of color. He backed away from the envelope, hands up, suddenly wanting nothing to do with it. The courier shrugged and left with the documents. I watched through the shaky phone camera as Tyler realized his plan had just collapsed. His forgery was useless if nobody would accept it. Tyler doubled down on day 7. I saw the Facebook post from my hospital bed. "Exciting changes coming to Morrison Hardware. Under new management, we're modernizing operations and expanding our vision." Customers started commenting immediately. Confused, concerned. Mrs. Chen, who'd shopped with us for 30 years, asked, "What happened to Nathan? Is he okay?" Tyler replied publicly, "Nathan is focusing on his health. The family decided fresh leadership was needed." That post triggered something. Our loyal customers started calling the store directly. They asked for me specifically. They questioned Tyler's authority. They demanded answers. One regular, old Mr. Blake, who bought his contractor supplies exclusively from us, walked in and refused to deal with Tyler. "I do business with Nathan Morrison or nobody," he announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Tyler tried charm, then intimidation, then desperate explanation. Mr. Blake simply left without buying anything. By afternoon, 3 more longtime customers had done the same. Tyler's arrogance was costing us money, and everyone could see it. I left the hospital on day 8 against medical advice. The doctors wanted me there for at least 3 more days, but I couldn't wait. Kyle drove me home, then to a coffee shop 2 blocks from the store. There, Lydia and Chris met me in a back corner booth. We planned quietly, carefully. Lydia had the recordings. Chris had statements from 6 employees willing to testify about Tyler's attempted takeover. I had legal ownership documents, updated just 3 months ago when I'd refinanced the building. "We need a public moment," I said, my voice still rough from intubation. "Something undeniable." Chris nodded. "Tomorrow, Friday, our busiest day, all the regulars will be there." Lydia added, "Tyler's meeting with suppliers at noon. He's trying to renegotiate our contracts under his name if you show up then." We all understood. The confrontation wouldn't be private. It would be witnessed, recorded, impossible to deny. That night, despite the pain in my abdomen from the healing incision, I slept better than I had in weeks. Tomorrow, I was taking back everything. Friday morning arrived with perfect weather. I parked 2 blocks away, wearing clothes that hung loose on my post-surgery body. Kyle waited in his car, ready to intervene if Tyler got physical. As I approached Morrison Hardware, I saw it through fresh eyes. My grandfather's dream, my father's legacy, my life's work. Tyler was inside, visible through the front windows, gesturing broadly to a group of confused suppliers. I pushed open the door. The bell chimed, that same bell that had announced customers since 1987. Every head turned. Yolanda gasped. Chris broke into a huge smile. Tyler stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open, face going pale. "Nathan," he finally managed, "you shouldn't be here, you're supposed to be recovering." I walked slowly toward my office, each step deliberate despite the pain. "I am recovering, at my store." The suppliers exchanged glances. One of them, Tom from Apex Tools, looked at Tyler with sudden understanding. "You said Nathan was stepping down permanently," Tyler scrambled. "He is, this is just, he's confused from the medications." But Yolanda stepped forward, her voice ringing clear across the sales floor. "Nathan is the owner, the only owner. Tyler has no authority here." Lydia emerged from the back office carrying the folder I'd seen in the hospital. She placed it on the counter where everyone could see. "We have documentation of everything you've attempted this week," she told Tyler calmly. Tyler's eyes darted to the folder, to me, to the suppliers, calculating his next move. "This is a family matter. We shouldn't discuss it publicly." Tom from Apex Tools crossed his arms. "You represented yourself as the new owner. You tried to renegotiate contracts under false pretenses. That affects my business. I'm staying." The other suppliers nodded. They wanted answers. Tyler tried changing tactics. "Nathan, we can talk about this privately. Mom and Dad are worried about you. The surgery was serious. You need rest, not stress." I opened the folder. Inside were printed emails Tyler had sent from my computer, using passwords he'd somehow obtained. Messages discussing the sale of the business. Plans to liquidate inventory at discount prices. Communications with Foster's building supply about a potential merger that would have destroyed us. "You weren't managing," I said quietly. "You were dismantling." The room went silent. Even the usual background noise of the store, the humming cooler, the distant radio, seemed to pause. Tyler's composure cracked. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under, holding this place together while you were unconscious, making impossible decisions. Someone had to step up." His voice rose with manufactured righteousness. "I was protecting the family business." Chris laughed, a short, sharp sound. "By firing Miguel for questioning you, by trying to change the locks, by meeting with our biggest competitor." Tyler whirled on him. "You're just an employee, stay out of this." That was his mistake. Treating them like they didn't matter, like their loyalty was something he could dismiss. Yolanda stepped forward. "We're not just employees, we're family here, real family, the kind Nathan built." Other staff members emerged from the aisles, from the warehouse, from the office. They formed a loose circle around the confrontation. 8 people who'd worked here for years, who'd chosen loyalty over Tyler's threats and promises. Tyler looked around, finally understanding. He was surrounded by people who'd made their choice, and it wasn't him. His face flushed red. "Fine, you want Nathan, the guy who can barely stand. Good luck when this place falls apart." I pulled myself up straighter despite the pain shooting through my abdomen. "I'm calling a meeting right now. Everyone who has a stake in Morrison Hardware, suppliers, key customers, staff. We're going to clarify exactly who owns this business and who's been lying about it." Tyler's eyes widened. "You can't do that, you're not well enough." I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt in weeks. "Watch me." Within 20 minutes, the store's small conference room was packed. Mrs. Chen was there, Mr. Blake, the Apex Tools representatives, our lumber supplier, the commercial contractors who bought from us weekly, every staff member except whoever was covering the register, and my parents who Kyle had called and picked up. They sat in the back looking confused and worried. Tyler tried to leave twice. Each time, Chris and 2 other employees simply stood in the doorway, arms crossed, saying nothing. Tyler was trapped in a room full of people he'd lied to. And the walls were closing in. I opened my laptop, wincing at the movement, and pulled up the ownership documents. Official, notarized, undeniable. Then I displayed Tyler's forged papers on the screen beside them. Differences were obvious. My documents had official seals, lawyer signatures, county filing stamps. Tyler's forgeries had clip art, mismatched fonts, and a notary stamp that didn't exist in our state. A supplier pointed at the screen. "You tried to pass off fake documents." Tyler's voice came out strangled. "Those were just drafts. I was going to have Nathan sign them properly when he was well enough." Lydia stood, holding up her phone. "That's not what you said on Monday." She pressed play. Tyler's voice filled the room, recorded clearly. "Nathan won't be coming back. The surgery had complications he doesn't know about yet. By the time he's coherent, everything will be legally transferred. The store will be mine, and there's nothing he can do about it." The silence that followed was devastating. My mother covered her mouth, tears starting. My father's face hardened into something I'd never seen before. Tyler had revealed himself completely. Not as a concerned brother helping during a crisis, but as a predator who'd been waiting for weakness. "Those documents," I said, pointing to the legal papers, "were updated 3 months ago. The store is mine. The building is mine. The inventory, the accounts, everything. Tyler has no ownership stake. He never did." The staff spoke next, one after another. Chris described how Tyler had tried to access bank accounts and was denied by our financial institution. Yolanda detailed his attempts to fire anyone who questioned him. Ramon from the warehouse told everyone how Tyler had met secretly with Foster's building supply, offering to sell them our customer list and supplier contacts. Each testimony built an undeniable picture. This wasn't a family disagreement or a misunderstanding. This was attempted theft, fraud, betrayal. Tyler tried to speak multiple times, but every excuse died in the face of evidence. The recordings, the documents, the witnesses. When he attempted to claim he was protecting the business from my instability, Mrs. Chen stood up. "I've known Nathan since he was 16, working here summers. He turned this store from struggling to thriving. You, Tyler, I've seen you here maybe 3 times in 10 years. Don't you dare claim you care about this place." Mr. Blake added, "Nathan earned my loyalty through honesty and quality. You tried to trade on his reputation while destroying everything he built. That's not business. That's cowardice." Tyler's face burned with shame and rage, but he couldn't respond. He had no defenders in this room. The customers chose next. One by one, our regulars stood and declared their loyalty. "I'll only do business with Nathan. If Tyler's involved, I'm finding another supplier. Morrison Hardware means Nathan Morrison. That's non-negotiable." Each statement landed like a hammer blow. Tyler had thought he could wear the crown without earning the kingdom. But he'd forgotten that loyalty isn't inherited or stolen. It's built through years of fair dealing, honest work, and genuine relationships. The contractors pulled out their phones and showed Tyler something that made him stumble backward. A group chat. Nearly 50 local builders and contractors discussing Tyler's takeover. They'd already agreed. If Tyler took control, they'd all switch to competitors. Their collective business represented almost 40% of our annual revenue. Tyler's takeover wouldn't have saved the store. It would have destroyed it within months. The realization crashed over him visibly. Even if his forgery had worked, even if he'd successfully stolen ownership, he would have inherited an empty shell. Without the staff's knowledge, the customer loyalty, and the supplier relationships, Morrison Hardware was nothing, and Tyler had nothing to offer any of them. My attorney walked in at 2 p.m. I'd called her that morning, asking her to bring every legal document related to the store's ownership. She placed a thick binder on the conference table, opened it to marked pages, and addressed the room professionally. "Nathan Morrison is the sole legal owner of Morrison Hardware, Incorporated. This ownership was legally transferred from his father, Richard Morrison, 5 years ago with all proper documentation and filing. There have been no changes, amendments, or transfers since that time." She turned to Tyler. "Attempting to forge ownership documents is a serious crime. Using false representation to access business accounts and contracts is fraud. Nathan would be within his rights to pursue criminal charges." Tyler finally found his voice, but it came out desperate. "I'm his brother, family. Nathan, you can't seriously be threatening me with legal action over a misunderstanding." I looked at him, really looked at him, seeing clearly for maybe the first time. You didn't misunderstand anything. You waited for me to be vulnerable and tried to steal everything. That's not family. That's not anything I recognize." The conference room felt smaller, the air heavier. I stood slowly, my hand pressed against my healing incision, but my voice was steady. "Tyler, I trusted you with the keys so you could handle emergencies. You used that trust to try to erase me." I pulled out my phone and displayed texts he'd sent to suppliers. "Here's where you told Midwest Lumber I was permanently disabled. Here's where you offered our customer database to Foster's for $50,000. Here's where you promised Miguel's job to your friend before you'd even successfully fired Miguel." Each revelation made Tyler smaller, his arrogance collapsing into something pathetic. My mother stood, her face wet with tears. "Tyler, how could you do this to your brother?" My father's voice was quiet but sharp as broken glass. "We trusted you to help during Nathan's surgery, not to steal from him." Tyler looked around the room desperately, seeking any sympathy, any understanding. He found none. Even the people who'd never met him before today saw him clearly now. The entitled younger brother who'd spent his whole life resenting someone else's success, waiting for his chance to take what he'd never earned. I met his eyes across the table. "You're not fired because you were never hired. You're banned from this property. The locks will be changed tonight. If you come back, I'll call the police." My parents stayed after everyone else left. We sat in my office, the one Tyler had tried to claim, surrounded by photos of 3 generations of Morrisons who'd built this business through honest work and respect. Dad spoke first, his voice heavy. "We almost believed him. We almost let him convince us you weren't capable." He looked at his hands. "I'm ashamed we doubted you." Mom reached across the desk and took my hand. When did Tyler become someone who could do this? When did we miss it? I thought about that, about all the small moments through our childhood. Tyler borrowing money and never repaying it. Tyler taking credit for group projects I'd done. Tyler's endless resentment of any success I had. The pattern had always been there. We just called it sibling rivalry instead of what it was, entitlement without character. "He didn't become this," I said finally. "This is who he's always been. We just gave him the benefit of the doubt until he proved we shouldn't." Dad nodded slowly. "The store is yours. It's always been yours. I'm sorry we questioned that for even a moment." They left quietly, and I sat alone in my office as evening light slanted through the windows. Outside, I could hear staff closing up, their familiar routines continuing despite the chaos. The store opened normally on Monday morning. I was there, still healing but present, leaning against the counter while Chris handled the heavy lifting. Tyler sent one text that weekend. "I'll never forgive you for humiliating me." I deleted it without responding. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give or withhold. Actions had consequences, and Tyler had finally met his. Over the next weeks, something beautiful happened. Customers who'd heard about the confrontation went out of their way to shop with us, telling me they respected how I'd handled it. Staff worked with renewed energy, knowing their loyalty hadn't been wasted. Suppliers offered better terms, appreciating the stability and honesty I represented. Morrison Hardware didn't just survive Tyler's attempted theft. It thrived because of what the crisis revealed: a community of people who valued integrity over convenience, loyalty over opportunism. 3 months later, I stood in the same spot where Tyler had stood during his failed takeover. But instead of shouting orders, I was listening to Yolanda's ideas for expanding our garden center. Instead of scheming to eliminate staff, I was planning profit-sharing bonuses. My brother tried to steal everything while I was weakest, but he didn't understand that the store was never just a building or bank accounts or legal documents. It was relationships, trust, and work honestly done. Those things can't be forged or stolen. They can only be earned. And standing there, finally healthy, surrounded by people who'd chosen to stand with me, I understood something Tyler never would. The real owner isn't determined by paperwork or family name. It's determined by who shows up, who cares, and who earns the right to lead through action rather than entitlement. Tyler learned that lesson too late, but I'll carry it forward for the rest of my life.